mentioned that there were 7 astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia when it lost contact with NASA at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, roughly 2.5 hours ago. We know that their families were taken almost immediately to an undisclosed location there at Cape Canaveral, the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. You're looking at the pictures right now of Rick Husband, the commander of the Space Shuttle, and the other members of the Space Shuttle. There's William McCool, who was the pilot, 41-year-old pilot, David Brown, one of the mission specialists, and the other members, Michael Anderson, another mission specialist, age 43, Kalpana Chawla, also a mission specialist, and also Laurel Clark. And in addition to that, the first Israeli astronaut ever, Ilan Ramon, a payload specialist, a colonel in the Israeli Air Force. As we think about their fates, and also, as you mentioned, the fate of those 3 astronauts who are currently aboard the Space Shuttle, and you mentioned a point that is certainly worth mentioning, which is that there's no doubt that the shuttle fleet will now be grounded. How quickly can an investigation like this proceed, and how quickly do they need to get back to those astronauts in space?
Well, I'm sure we have all the talent of NASA, if not in Florida right now. They'll be en route there and gathering around to assemble all the possible data that they can to make the timely decisions as to what to do. The astronaut and cosmonauts up at the space station do have a Soyuz spacecraft that is a crew emergency return vehicle that they can come back at any time. But I think as many past events in space would testify, it's best not to rush into drastic decisions. There's nothing wrong with the space station right now. There's no need for any drastic action. There may be supply capabilities available through the Progress resupply ships, but I feel certain that the crew in the space station will have to come down before another fully assembled crew would go back up again, because that would probably be on the next shuttle flight. We have replaced the crew return vehicle last November, and the next cycle for it to be replaced will be in April. So they may send up a fresh Soyuz spacecraft before having the crew that's on board the space station right now, committing them to return in the Soyuz that's up there. Well, so much for the space station. There are many people who will be looking at that situation. And of course, the entire nation is going to be looking very closely at the southeastern United States and the areas where there may be portions of the Space Shuttle Columbia. And I think everyone has been warned to stay very clear of those locations so that they can avoid any hazardous material, but also so that the investigation can continue in a very straightforward way.
Former astronaut Buzz Aldrin, American hero, speaking to us on this most heart-wrenching of days. Just to repeat, it was 2 hours and 32 minutes ago that NASA lost contact with the Space Shuttle Columbia. NBC's Jim Miklashevsky at the White House has reported that a U.S. military satellite noted a heat spike at roughly that same moment that we now believe was the catastrophic explosion or malfunction aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia. Certainly no indication that any of the 7 astronauts on board somehow survived that horrendous event. It was almost instantaneously that camera crews in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in the Palestine area, in Waco, Texas, started to record the video that you're seeing here, the debris of the Space Shuttle Columbia hurtling to Earth. It had been traveling at 12,500 miles an hour at roughly 39 miles up in the sky. So a wide debris field, very dangerous for anyone in that vicinity of Texas or Louisiana. Right now, we're going to turn it over to NBC's Brian Williams to continue our coverage. For Soledad O'Brien, I'm David Bloom in New York. Good day.
And David, thank you, as America now has another tragic piece of videotape that will no doubt be repeated throughout this day and in the days to come, the apparent disintegration of the space shuttle right about at the center portion of the state of Texas. We are going to go to NBC News White House correspondent David Gregory, who has just emerged from the West Wing with more information. David?
Brian, I've been speaking to White House officials who say that at the moment, with the senior staff assembled here at the White House, they are fully investigating any scenario that might involve terrorism, anything beyond a mechanical catastrophe. But officials telling NBC News at this point, there is no reason to believe that terrorism or any foul play was involved with this unfolding disaster. The president is now approximately a half an hour away from the White House. He was at the presidential retreat of Camp David. He will, we're told, speak to the nation at some point today. He, within the past hour, has been in touch with the head of NASA, Sean O'Keefe. His chief of staff, Andy Card, has also spoken with Mr. O'Keefe. They are monitoring the situation. They're getting all the latest information as NASA sorts through all of their available information and prepares to brief the country themselves. The president will not speak until NASA briefs the country with all the information that it has. There has certainly been a lot of discussion about the fact that among the astronauts, the first ever from Israel, we're told by officials that government officials, administration officials, have been in touch with their counterparts in the Israeli government. The president has not yet called Prime Minister Sharon. That is a judgment that has been made. That call has not been made yet. We also know that Secretary of Homeland Security, Tom Ridge, has also been very active talking to local officials in Texas and Louisiana. There is a huge public safety component to be coordinated as NASA tries to figure out what happened on the ground with falling debris that is very dangerous. People should stay away from it, NASA says. It's important that the White House coordinate through Homeland Security with local officials to make sure that people stay away from that area and that effort is mobilized. So again, the president is on his way back. He learned about this earlier this morning from his chief of staff, Andy Card. He does intend to speak to the nation at some point today after NASA gets more information. But again, Brian, it bears repeating that while an investigation of every scenario goes on with the senior staff assembled here at the White House, the president's chief political advisor, Karl Rove, his press staff, the national security advisor, Condoleezza Rice, and his chief of staff. While that investigation on every front continues, administration officials saying there is no reason to believe at this point that terrorism or any other act of foul play is involved. The president has been in touch directly with the head of NASA as he continues to monitor these events. Brian.
David, as you point out, the huge difference between what apparently is a national tragedy and what could have been a national emergency of some kind, it also bears repeating the FBI not at all involved in this. Intelligence officials say they noticed nothing untoward prior to launch, at the time of launch, or all morning this morning. Prior to this, perhaps you can go back over the president's schedule these past 12 hours. They were supposed to go to Camp David, the President and Prime Minister Blair, yesterday, but that was put off, correct?
It was, because of the weather we have down here, rain and fog. It's not ideal conditions to travel by helicopter to Camp David, which, as you know, is about an hour away in the Maryland mountains. So the president getting word of this morning. He was spending the weekend at Camp David and has come back via limousine, via his motorcade. And as I say, he's about a half an hour out or so after first talking with his chief of staff, Andy Card. So certainly monitoring the media coverage of this and talking directly to NASA. Again, it bears repeating, the administration stressing that while so much information is out there, there's so much that is not known at this point. The president fully intends to address the American people, but not until more information can be shared, more conclusions can be drawn about what is an unfolding catastrophe. Brian.
David Gregory from the White House lawn this morning. And again, this president will be forced to calm an entire nation. We do expect the president to speak at some point today, again, pending confirmation of a lot of the information that is out there. We expect the president to take to the airwaves and address the nation at some point when the White House feels it would be necessary and appropriate. We have no official confirmation of death of the 7 astronauts on board the shuttle Columbia, which, if you're just joining us, was making its 28th flight in a 22-year-long program, 113 flights in all. And apparently broke up at around 200,000 feet at around Mach 6, would put it roughly at 12,000 miles an hour over central Texas. And as David Bloom pointed out, camera crews for miles around rushed to get the best vantage point. And as people join our coverage throughout the day, perhaps hearing the worst, there is at least one New York radio station with a live reporter in Midtown Manhattan interviewing people about the possibility of terrorism. That is, by all accounts and according to all the evidence, absolutely not the case here. This appears to be a catastrophic system failure on the shuttle itself and not the work of any foreign hands that would do any harm to the space shuttle astronauts.